Welcome to Our Neighbours 2021, which is part of my Made in India podcast, where I'm featuring incredible indie music from Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. This video series is an opportunity for me to chat to the musicians who featured on the podcast. So, Our Neighbours actually started last year when India was having border disputes with countries that were, well, our neighbours. And it really messes with your brain when politics divides us and dictates what we mean to one another. So I wanted to represent compassion and camaraderie by fangirling over really awesome music. In this video, I'm talking to mridangam player, singer, and producer, Yanchan. Namaskar, sir.
Vanakkam.
So this is not actually the first time you've been on Made in India. You've been on the show before. Last year, you'd accompanied rapper Shaun to Paul when he was on tour in India. And I've actually been following your work. You've released quite a bit of music in 2020 and 2021, India Beat Tape in 2020. And what I'm super excited about is your Scarborough Beat Tape that you released in May this year. And you're from Scarborough, am I right?
Exactly, born and raised.
And so the song that we're actually going to be featuring on the Our Neighbours mixtape is Kennedy Station. And so I'm excited about this. But I would also like to know the story behind Kennedy Station and why Kennedy Station? You have to explain this to me.
Yeah, so I mean, for those of you who don't know about Scarborough, we have subway stations that connect Scarborough to downtown Toronto. And one of the monumental subway stations, it's like the crossing point where people go to actually enter the subway to get to downtown, is Kennedy Station. And for me, growing up as a child, since I was a child, up until I got my first job in downtown, that's the route that a lot of people take to get to downtown Toronto. So it was always a crazy feeling going down there, just because you never know what you're going to see. You might sit beside a crazy person on the subway. You might see fights. You might just have a chill, smooth ride listening to a new album, or listening to Made in India on my way to downtown.
Subtle!
So I really wanted to showcase all the different feelings I've had about Kennedy Station in that beat. So that's why you hear a lot of variations, a lot of different emotions, a lot of highs, and a lot of cinematic. I wanted to go with that cinematic approach for that specific beat.
It's really good. So I'm tripping on Bluffs. That song is so good. Can you tell me about Bluffs? Because you have to tell me firstly what is Bluffs, and I just need to understand the song because I'm tripping on that song, so I might feature that on the
I mean, thank you for listening to that one, and that's actually one of my favorites on the tape too. So there's one pretty popular beach in Scarborough called the Bluffs, and for me in high school there's a cliffside park on top of the Bluffs area that my friends and I used to go. So, these are high school times. We would go out there. A lot of people would go out there to have drinks, have fun, just have a good time. So when I was creating the beat for Bluffs, I'm I needed something that brought out that emotion of having a good time, more of sentimental, memories, right? And then when that's why it has a dance type of feel.
It does.
And then
it's one of those,
what brought it full circle was the saxophone. And if you hear the saxophone, it's actually a sample from one of my all-time favorite Tamil songs, Anjali.
Oh, that's incredible.
So if you hear the chops, obviously for me, whenever I'm chopping up samples, I want it to be in a different way. I want to shed a different perspective on it. But when I started chopping up the saxophones, I don't know, it just brought everything together, and it just gave that extra light that I needed for the beat.
It's
so it has a tint of nostalgia in it too.
I love it. I have been tripping on Bluffs, and I'm I gotta get this song on my mixtape too. It's so good. So I have to say the one that I feel like made me a little bit emotional was a Mama's interlude. I was like, why am I getting so emotional about this one? Like it hit me deep.
Yeah.
I was like, what is that?
Yeah, that one was intentional for sure. My grandma was a very supportive person for me growing up, especially in my career. And then she passed away last year, or like a few months back. So if you notice in all my projects, I always have an interlude, and the interlude is usually dedicated to someone that's close in my life or something specific. And that's why I call that one Amama's interlude. So it was like an ode, a love letter to her.
That's so sweet. So, you were earlier just talking about the way your music sounds, right? Like I guess like every artist has like an ambition for what they want the listener to sort of feel. So when I'm listening to the music, I'm thinking like Kanye and Drake and Timbaland and A.R. Rahman like birthed like a Sri Lankan Tamil Canadian love child, and that's like what I'm hearing. But there is I feel like so much that's going on in the music, because I feel like there's like hip hop at its core, but it's got these like South Indian flourish, and yet like you said, it's so cinematic. So when I'm listening to it, I know that you're a really great percussionist and you're a great beat maker, but you're also telling a story. Is that right? Is that the vibe?
Yeah, exactly. And it's different when you release an instrumental tape. There's not many producers that I've seen that release just instrumental tapes in the form of like an album. So there's no lyrics most of the time, right? It's just music. So how do you get listeners to make it feel like it's still like an album, top to bottom? How do you make them feel like they're going through a movie, and there's a rising action, there's the plot, there's the falling action? So a big shout out to my team, Mike, TJ, and all the collaborators that were a part of this project. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be able to construct it the way that it did come out. I have to give, and I forgot to mention, like for Kennedy Station specifically, the ambience, that whole orchestral string section. That's one of my close collaborators, Kellison. He's an amazing pianist, and he's actually a composer. So he helped compose that section. And for Bluffs, another close collaborator, Ralph Francis, another person who grew up out here in Scarborough. He's the one who did that midsection in Bluffs. So I feel like combining all those energies with the collaborations really helped paint that picture that I wanted as well. But yeah, I wanted people to experience it from top to bottom. Like that's how I wanted people to. I wanted someone to be like, damn, like I want to go to Scarborough after listening to this. Like I want to go to all these places Yanchan's mentioning. Like that's how I wanted people to feel.
I did. I felt like that. I really did. So you know what? The last time when we spoke, I think, and I always do this because I do my research, right? And I remember the last time when we spoke,
I'm waiting.
That I knew your guru's name, right? Like Sri Vasudevan Rajalingam, and you were like,
yeah.
How did she know? And so I mean, it's amazing, and I credit it to like my team, like just like you credit your team, I'm crediting my team, who are so good at like the research. But I think one of the things that we also had chatted about is that being, having immigrant parents, and I know that like your, journey was so different, especially for your parents who left Sri Lanka during a really bad time and moved to Ontario. And one of the things that I think you've sort of mentioned in like other interviews that you've done is that there are these moments. It's not like your mom like dreamed that my son must be a musician. That's not like a career path that they usually go, this is what they should be doing. But I'm super curious because you did learn mridangam, right? Like, do you think it would have been really different if you pursued being a Carnatic classical artist versus maybe like a hip hop artist?
Slightly, yes. I think for me, whether I did mridangam or Carnatic singing, I would have always ended up in music somehow, doing something in music. I don't know how to explain it. It's a feeling. Like most kids, I think I mentioned it last time in my interview with you, they get either forced into going down into learning Carnatic vocal lessons or mridangam classes or Bharatanatyam. Out here, it's very rare for a child to force their parents to take them to these classes. In my case,
is that what you did?
In my case, yeah. Yeah, in my case, that's what I did. I still remember the day. Like it was like it's so cliche. It was love at first sight. I saw someone playing the mridangam for a bhajan. I saw it, and I was with my mom, and I started tugging on her. Sorry, I'm like, I need to learn this right now. I need to learn this right now. My mom's like, what the hell? Like that's so random, right? Like I was already learning Carnatic vocal by this time,
Yeah.
and then literally I kept pestering. I was that type of kid. You know, if I wanted something, I would pester my parents until I got it. So I pestered my parents, and literally the next week they put me in Mridangam class. And Vasudev and Master was my Carnatic teacher's brother, Carnatic vocal teacher's brother. So that's how the connection came, and from there, that passion just turned into an obsession, and that's how I ended up becoming to where I am at now.
That's amazing. I love that you were like, Amma, Appa, I want to learn Mridangam. And then they were
Exactly.
like, okay, fine. And then also,
Yeah.
this is what also is the thing, right? Like such the South Asian connection. Be like, my brother will teach Mridangam. So that keeps it within the family.
Yeah, it's always like that. It's always like that.
So good. So you know what, you're one of the things that I also find really interesting is that because a lot of what, you know, made in India, you know, I think it really is in my heart to support like independent music. And I think being an independent musician, I feel like is a little bit of the epitome of the struggling artist. Can you give me like a feel of what is the like South Asian indie music scene in Canada? Like, what is it like there? Is it hard? Is it easy? Is there a lot happening there that we just don't know about?
I think the beauty about, you know, living in Toronto, it's so diverse. There's so many different cultures, so many different genres of music. It's like a melting pot, right? Toronto's like the center of everything. So for me, growing up, my whole foundation was just Carnatic music. So there's a big Carnatic base out here, especially Toronto, Mississauga, Brampton area. So I was exposed to a lot of that. But then you also have the other side of hip hop, which I was also exposed to. So during my high school days, that's when, you know, Drake was on the come up, Nicki Minaj. When that happened, you know, every time when, like, believe it or not, when I was out of my friend group, I was the first person to get my license. So when it came to my car, it would be like Sikal Guru Charan, GN Balasubramaniam, ML Vasantakumar, like all these old classic Carnatic songs. Then they'd be like, yo, what is this? And then they would blast the radio, right? And eventually I'm like, okay, you know what? Let me actually take it. Let me appreciate it. Don't be narrow-minded. And that's when I started appreciating more hip-hop. And that's when I got the idea to blend both. But now, like ever since, like for the last couple of years, I see more and more South Asian artists blending their foundations in classical music with hip-hop and other genres too. So it's a very exciting time in Toronto, I would say. Like everyone's eager to try different things. And I love that.
Now, you had mentioned earlier that like your Scarborough Beat Tape was like your way of like enticing people to come to Scarborough, right? So
Yeah.
you've come to India, you were on tour here last year. So if I come to visit you in Scarborough, where would be the first place you take me?
Okay, so number one spot, Fredericks. Okay. There's a beat on the beat called Fredericks, and that was the first Hakka restaurant that was formed in Scarborough, and that was the childhood spot. So that's why if you like chili chicken, if you like Hakka food, you come to this spot. I will take you there. I forgot. I don't know if you eat meat or not, but they have great vegetarian foods as well.
Oh no, I'm from Kerala. I'm Malayali, so we practically invented beef. Like it's
Okay, so
I
yeah, I'll
eat
definitely take you
everything.
there first. I'll take you there first so you can enjoy authentic Scarborough style Hakka food.
Also, since I'm not very cool, when I land up in Scarborough, do you know, like, can you teach me some slang so that people think I'm cool? Scarborough slang.
Honestly, we're gonna make fun of me for this. I don't even know. There's so many new words added every day in the Scarborough Toronto slang dictionary. I swear.
Are you saying you're becoming an old man? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Possibly,
Yeah, so
possibly. I'm trying to think. Man, off the top of my head. Well. Okay, one thing people say here. Yeah, eh? So that's like, okay, if something is fascinating you may have heard a lot of memes. If something fascinating is happening, people are like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Is that
always
correct?
like, yeah. Yeah.
Be like, did you like Yanchan Scarborough Beat Tape? Yeah. Is that how
I guess
is
it
that
kind
the
of
way to
works on
use it?
context. Like you saw something like you shouldn't have seen, and you'd be like, yeah. So it's more like a question mark at the end.
Oh.
Yeah.
I gotta
So
figure out
that's
how to use
something
this one.
people have
This
been
is a
saying
toughie.
recently.
You give me some
Yeah.
complicated slang and all, man. It's so hard to use. So, one more thing before like we round this out. I have to ask you, for anyone that doesn't know, because I also realize that like we've been talking about the beat tape, right? For people that don't know what a beat tape is, what is a beat tape?
So as a producer, we're always creating beats, right? But I feel like there's never been a platform just to display that. So then now, anyone could put a piece of music that they've made on Spotify, on Apple Music, on TikTok. A beat tape is essentially a collection of beats that you put out in a form of an album. So that can range from like, how 5 to 10 to 15.
Yeah.
It's still, I would say, something pretty, like I released my first beat tape, I think back in 2017 to 2016. I put it on SoundCloud at that time. I don't even know if it's still up there because that was the free platform. But at that time, I feel like there wasn't that much light shed to producers and beat makers. In the past, a lot of the light has been shed to just artists as a whole. But now, especially with pop music, you see a lot more producers at the forefront, like DJ Mustard featuring, Murder Beats featuring. You have Diplo, you have Avicii, all of these producers who are getting big time names. So now I feel like releasing beat tapes is like a great form of marketing for producers. And I think the beauty of like beat tapes and just music in general, since there's no lyrics, I feel like people can play them anywhere at any time, which I didn't realize, right? So when I dropped the India beat tape, like people were telling me like I would play this when I'm cooking, when I'm cleaning, when I'm studying. People just play it in the background, and I guess a lot of people just enjoy that sometimes without no lyrics.
It's true. I was playing it while I made chai for myself today. I was like,
There you go.
making some chai.
There you go. It's
listening
probably a
to
good
these-
chai you made too.
Yeah, it's top quality stuff. Yeah.
I gotta try it.
Okay,
I gotta
Yanchan,
try it.
thank you so much. This was so good, and I am so glad I got to catch up with you a little bit, talk about your new beat tape that I've just been so excited about, and thank you for being a part of our Neighbours. You're a pretty awesome neighbor to have.
Likewise, thanks again. You've always showed me and my team so much love. So shout out to you and your team for setting this up. And I hope to see you next time when I come back to India.
Thanks so much, Yanchan. Check out his songs Bluffs and Kennedy Station on our Neighbours 2021 episode on Made in India. The link is in the description. Also, subscribe and like and follow and all that stuff, and check out more of our Made in India sessions on our YouTube channel.